We've had episodes with Pinkie showing her normal amounts of randomness before, but feeling Pinkie keen seems to have her randomness turned up a few notches from anything we've seen thus far. But even aside from that, we get our first intentional appearance from Derpy, being the pony we have come to know her to be, so feeling Pinkie keen gets a few bonus points for that fact alone. The episode begins with Twilight practicing some of her spell work on Spike, turning ordinary objects into fancy clothes. But Twilight is unable to keep her concentration when Pinkie Pie is acting strangely, which says a lot considering what we've seen from Pinkie before now. Wearing an umbrella on her head, Pinkie is looking intensely worried, running from place to place, but Twilight just brushes it off as Pinkie Pie being Pinkie Pie. Pinkie's tail starts to twitch, and she seems to think that Twilight should automatically know what that means. Pinkie tells her that a twitchy tail means that something is about to fall, which Twilight immediately brushes off as nonsense until a frog falls on her face. We hear a croak, and Pinkie mentions that he just said "nice catch" in frog. I guess we can add understanding animal sounds to Pinkie's repertoire of talents. Apparently the frog had dropped from a wagon that is strapped to Fluttershy, which she manages to hold steady in mid-air. Just how much would something like that weigh? Fluttershy mentions that the pond is getting overpopulated, so she wants to move some of the inhabitants over to Froggy Bottom Bog. Apparently Fluttershy is in charge of population control too, when it comes to the local animals. Spike is thoroughly impressed with Pinkie being able to predict that something would fall, but Twilight shrugs it off as just a coincidence. Until Pinkie's tail starts twitching again, and Twilight falls into a ditch. Where did that come from? This looks like it is running right through the middle of town. Come to think of it, would Twilight have actually seen this ditch if she hadn't been trying to shrug off the Pinkie sense as just a coincidence? Even with 2 events in a row that Pinkie had predicted, Twilight is still trying to explain it away as just a coincidence. Until Applejack shows us that she believes in the Pinkie sense as well. We may not know just how long Pinkie has had this ability, but it was long enough for Applejack to put her faith into it. Applejack may not understand it, but has learned not to question the randomness. Pinkie's ears start flopping, which is followed by Twilight getting splashed by some mud. And all these coincidences are getting Twilight all the more frustrated. While Twilight is taking a bath, Pinkie is trying to explain all the different little feelings she gets that lead to different outcomes. And Twilight really is trying to listen here, although she is certainly taken back when Gummy makes his first appearance. Out of all the pets that have shown up in MLP, Gummy has to be the most unexpected. And even for how bizarre it sounds, he actually fits well with Pinkie's randomness. But Twilight still doesn't believe that Pinkie has any special powers. To her, it's still just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. But when Pinkie asks why it is so hard to believe the Pinkie sense when Twilight can do magic, we get another teaching moment from Twilight. After she steps onto a soapbox, of course. Twilight tells Pinkie that magic is something that you study and practice, and will only happen when you decide to make it happen. I don't know. I can remember other moments in the series when magic has been unpredictable, and even unstable. The fact that Twilight is saying something like the Pinkie sense couldn't exist seems to contradict that uncontrollable burst of magic on the day she got her cutie mark. I'm certain that Twilight had no intention of turning her parents into plants, or making baby Spike giant size. When one of Pinkie's combos comes right before Twilight getting hit by a door, Twilight is still feeling confused, even saying, "I don't believe this." And Pinkie replies with, "You don't believe because you don't understand." So Twilight takes it upon herself to find the cause of Pinkie's twitching. But even after Pinkie has been hooked up to all kinds of monitoring equipment, neither of them are able to get any readings during an actual twitch. Twilight goes as far to say, "I will not believe anything that I cannot explain," even with Pinkie saying that sometimes you have to believe in something even if you can't figure it out. Now, this makes for a rather extensive topic of discussion. I've heard a number of people say that this episode rubs them the wrong way because of the conversations between Twilight and Pinkie. The fact that Pinkie keeps using words like believe has apparently left some people divided on how they feel about this episode. Personally, I think that Twilight is going a little too far in trying to disprove something just because she can't understand it. And I also think that Pinkie goes a little too far in trying to get others to just accept her ability without trying to understand it. But we do see moments where Twilight is making efforts to figure out the Pinkie sense, even with her attitude of trying to disprove its existence. And we do see Pinkie allowing Twilight to do her research, even while she's trying to convince Twilight to just accept the Pinkie sense as fact. I think that when both of these attitudes meet somewhere in the middle, then it becomes a worthwhile lesson. I don't believe that we should ever stop our efforts on trying to understand the world around us, but we should also realize that there will always be an element of the unknown. Regardless of how much we learn, adapt, and explore, there will be something more around the corner that we don't understand yet. Even when we discover the meaning behind some unknown factor in our lives, there will always be something more that we are unable to comprehend. When we say that we don't believe in something that we cannot explain, I think that can lead to ignorance. But when we just accept that something exists without making any effort to understand it, I think that can also lead to ignorance. We get a few scenes with Twilight following Pinkie around, and a few comedic bits along the way. But certainly the most notable is the appearance of Derpy. Although, seeing Twilight getting hit with a flower pot, an anvil, a wagon filled with bales of hay, and finally a piano, it's rather impressive just how much Twilight can take and still keep going. When the group starts heading towards Froggy Bottom Bog, we get to see just how much a blind acceptance can lead to an unnatural fear, right down to Spike and Pinkie being afraid of Fluttershy exploding for no reason. But we still see Twilight being overly critical of the Pinkie sense, even to the point of saying, "I told you so." When the Hydra appears out of the bog, I was a little concerned about Pinkie here. As the rest of the group is immediately willing to run, Pinkie is petrified with fear, even to the point of being unable to move. She would have been eaten by the Hydra if Twilight hadn't reacted so quickly. This shows yet another moment in the series where Pinkie had given in to fear, if only for a short time. I also noticed that Fluttershy says to herself a hop, skip, and a jump, showing a little continuity from Dragonshy. It is admirable to see Twilight doing so much to help the others escape here, although brashly charging the Hydra seemed a bit over the top. However, when she is trying to make her own escape, why isn't she using her teleport spell here? I mean, she had been practicing it so much during Applebuck's season you'd think that it had become natural to her by now. Or perhaps her panic was overtaking her rational mind. At least later on, we know that she is still able to use her magic, as she literally bursts into flames when her rage boils over. As the episode comes to an end, we see Twilight become willing to accept that something like the Pinkie sense can exist and even be relied upon, even when she is unable to explain it. And that can be a good lesson to learn in life, provided you don't reach a point of blind acceptance without making any effort to understand the world around you. What do you think? Has watching Feeling Pinkie Keen ever rubbed you the wrong way? Do you think that this episode could have used a bit of a rewrite? Or do you believe that the message it conveys is a good one? I would like to hear your thoughts on this topic and whether you think any differently about Feeling Pinkie Keen. I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.